What is up, y'all? Welcome to the final episode of the Blueprint Behind the Scenes series. Today, I'm here with the full team that worked on the project. We've got Mark Matthews and Chris Snodgrass, the two builders and writers that were in the film. And then we've got Jarrett Lindell, the photographer for the project. And we've just taken a bunch of questions from everybody on Instagram and on YouTube. And we're gonna go through those and just kind of have a candid conversation about the project. We're not really sure how this video is gonna go. It's a little bit informal. We're just kind of set up in my living room here. It's probably gonna be a bit on the longer side. I'll do some editing to carve down our tangents, but bear with us. And I think we'll start with some filmmaking questions more specifically, and then we'll dive into some of the more building specific content.
All right, well, I got everything up on my iPad here. So the first question, what was the inspiration behind the video? There's a few things that inspired it, right? Like the concept, the idea, but I think it all really started with the visual effects. I think that was the base.
Yeah, I think like it was a combination of life cycles and like seeing some of the effects that were done in the life cycles film. And then I saw an anthill film that had kind of a visual effect like this, where there was like a jump being built as the rider was hitting it. And I think those two things kind of came together. I don't know. And then I guess you do build lapses in all of your videos.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of like all these things fused. Could we do like a time lapse with the rider riding the feature as it was being built?
And I get questions from people like, what inspired you to build a trail for your community? And it's almost like, well, that almost kind of like fell into our laps by accident, right? Like with the project, we slowly wanted to do the effect, but then as soon as we got sponsors involved and more people involved, we realized it was only feasible to do it legally and do it proper and like take all the proper steps to really make a rad trail for the Cumberland network. And that kind of helped build the narrative, and then the inspiration just kept growing from there. Like I just saw so many angles we were doing the video from, and it became more exciting.
Yeah, well, it also became harder to like figure out, like what was the point of the video? Like originally it was, to a degree, like just this effect was gonna be the whole video, and there was gonna be a little bit of a documentary component to it. And then once all of those other elements came in, we had so many different angles we could kind of come at the story, and it was like, what's the most important story to tell?
Yeah, the project definitely grew as we kind of started pitching ideas between ourselves, and it wasn't set in stone from the beginning. And I think as it grew, it became better. And the inspiration kept going with it.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, from a filmmaking point of view, it was definitely the biggest project I've taken on in terms of like documenting something and trying to like weave that into a story. And I think that's maybe the lesson learned from it, is how you have an idea and you start following that thread or whatever, and then that kind of opens up into all these other things, and you kind of have to be able to roll with the punches a little bit and like figure out like what is the actual story. It might be completely different than what you had set out to.
Even when you didn't know like exactly how the final film would look, but we had like, I don't know, a quarter of the footage. That still inspired me, seeing that footage. Like, inspired me to keep digging. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be way cooler than what we thought. Like, especially looking back at that original effect that we pitched to Shimoda. And like, we thought that was so sick at the time. We're like, this is so cool. And then we're like so proud to show it to Shimoda. And then we look at it now, we're like, that is horrible.
It's so really
clunky. But it was cool at the time. So like, I think that it was a new concept, and that was some inspiration for me. Is like, I'm doing something new no one's really seen before. Like, people have seen life cycles, but this isn't the same concept exactly. It's unique in its own way.
Totally.
What else did people ask? Gatewood Brown asked, what was the most challenging segment for us to film? I mean, there was a lot of segments that weren't easy.
Special effects.
Yeah, I mean, it was all visual effects.
All the effects, some days were harder than others with the effects, but they're all pretty equally difficult.
There was a lot of planning that went into every single shot. From your camera angles to even how we built the sections of trail.
Yeah, I mean, as we were going, we were building like the exit to a section and the run into that section where the visual effect was going to happen. So we had this trail that was like leapfrogging through the forest with incomplete sections.
And without Mark's riding ability and like trail vision between the two of us, I don't think that would have came together as smooth as it did.
No.
I think like even from a riding perspective, not just filming, but riding and building, like building a trail that way was really challenging, so it was hard to visualize. Like
super hard.
it's nicer just to build top to bottom, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're building in sections, you don't know if they're gonna flow together or not.
And then the speeds are going to work, or
Yeah, and think about all the times we like built berms 2 or 3 times because we like realized they flowed better a certain way because we were building in like chunky segments, but it still flowed together really well at the very end. But that was tough. And
with some tweaking, but I mean, just figuring that out the whole way through.
Yeah.
And having to nail things like first try, kind of, right? Like the drone overhead shot we had to build and ride in the same day, whereas some things were prepared months in advance, mossed over, and then revealed again.
Yeah. The drone shot was the hardest one.
Yeah,
I think if we had to go with one, it was definitely that.
Yeah, because that was like, I think we did that whole shot in like an hour or two.
Yeah, we do it all in one section. We had the drone up to take the pre-trail shot, and then we used rocks as markers basically to reline the drone up. We had to land it, bring it back up in the air after we had built the trail, and then you'd ride through, and had to get those things to like match up, those 2 different layers in post.
Yeah.
And then of course once I bring it in post, Chris is in the corner of the frame on a cell phone because I couldn't even see him. I couldn't even see him in the shot. Unfortunately, we were able to zoom in just like a tiny bit, and it kind of cropped him out of the corner. But it was like the most difficult and stressful shot. And then it was like, oh geez, how did we miss it?
I remember getting that text.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that that's like one of the first reveal shots in the film too. Like you're riding, you nailed that corner, and it just set the tone.
It's the most dramatically different as well.
Yeah.
Like really.
Yeah, you
people
really
wake
see
up
that
to
cut.
like, oh, this is something different.
Yeah, I watched that and I remember why. I watched that and I wish there was more shots like that. Then I remember why there wasn't.
Yeah.
So that would be like
the amount of words.
It's so much work, so much time to do a full segment of shots like that. So we had like 5 people ask questions related to how many hours we put into the project, how many hours of footage we think we got. Okay, so there's a few different like within that theme, but the one that's kind of on its own is how many hours of footage do you think we collected?
I think there's probably like 4 to 5 hours of footage. That's like majorly just documenting the building, which in some ways I wish I had more actually in the edit. Like I have, you're always wanting those frames that are super like just beautiful frames, the gems of the whole thing. And I had a lot of those, but then there were moments where I was like, oh, I wish I'd have like run the camera a little bit more on that foggy day. Like we had that one day that was just incredible for shooting, or like a couple weeks.
In the light rays,
and one like when I shot the couple shots of the trail that were just the trail by itself and in the fog.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did I not shoot so much more on that day? And I think it was because we were so deep in just like trying to get the project done in the fall before we had called it and decided that we couldn't do it in the window we had originally thought. But even, you have 5 hours of footage, and once you whittle it down, you still have like, I probably still had 45 minutes of footage, not including interviews. This is just like the B-roll footage that then needed to get cut down into something that was between 5 and 10 minutes long. So it was still, there's way more than you ever really needed.
And then like all the other hourly time related questions were about like, I'll just spit them off all really quickly here. So how many hours were put into Blueprint? How many hours did you spend on the trail and the edit? So like the combined hours. And then how long did it take to make the video? And if you convert it to weeks, how many weeks would it be? So like, I guess basically overall, people are just curious about like what the actual time we put into this was. And it's pretty hard to track that exactly, but we like started in the fall.
Yeah, and we really started it probably, if you talk about the concept and developing the idea, which was much less time overall, it wasn't a weekly schedule or anything, but we were going out and doing research essentially. And that we probably started in May or something before we even pitched the idea.
I think so,
just to make sure we knew what we were doing. And then as we kept, we got the slider and we were like, oh, we need to figure out how to do this with the slider. So we kept doing that. But then we really started cutting ground, or at least flagging the line and then getting into cutting ground like September-ish, I think. I mean, we took a break in the winter. We took probably 4 months off.
Yeah.
I was editing a little bit in that time, but to a degree, I kind of just closed the project. Like, I didn't have enough, I didn't have the interview content from you. I had your interview, I think.
Honestly, call it a year and thank our wives and partners.
I mean, if someone is like
patient,
I think think about why people ask those questions, right? They want to know how long it's going to take if they were to try the same thing.
Yeah.
And I would say commit a year of your life to that project.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's like
with a lot of time per
it
week,
might-
with like at least 3 days per week.
Yeah, like it
minimum.
might go faster, but if you like want to have anything in your life besides trail building,
Yeah.
commit about a year.
Yeah. And to make a documentary, you kind of like it. You just have to be there when things are happening, right? You couldn't go out for like 3 days and make the same film that you can make documenting a project over a year. It's like you could make a film, but it would be a very different film documenting somebody's experience over a week versus a year.
You don't get the natural responses and
Frustrations,
frustrations
and
and
the
feelings
excitement
and
and all that stuff.
yeah. I mean, yeah, there was days where it was snowing and sleeting and we're 12 hours in and tired and didn't want to be there anymore. And
When some of those shots were beautiful on those days, right?
Yeah.
Like if you just happen to go out for like a week to shoot something, you might not get those
might miss
magic moments of like the fog shots that we had and like some of the rainy days or snowy days or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, just being in the woods that long, you get to see some pretty
Yeah.
pretty amazing stuff.
So Tom Little asked, what's the best way to showcase speed and style on a trail? So I think they're kind of wondering about like, what's the best way to showcase this? I'm guessing this person is like interested in shooting mountain biking.
Yeah.
And they want to think of like the best way to showcase how to make riding look great.
I think for like speed, I like to either be with the rider in like a drone or a cable cam, something like that. We didn't do any cable cams in this project. We did do some drone stuff. But then the other way that's a little bit easier to achieve in terms of time is to do pan shots, basically, like just following the rider through with a long lens so that you're really tight to the rider, but you're just seeing all the foliage just whip by the camera, and it just really amplifies that speed.
Yeah, I was gonna say pans too. I mean, pans for photos at least show movement, right? You've got the entire landscape behind whipping by as you're following the rider, and it takes a lot of time to nail it. But I think one thing that we definitely do is like I'll send you back up and do another lap like so many times just to get that perfect.
No one gets pan shots first or second. Or
No,
third.
Yeah.
and
It's
even
just
for
not a
any
thing.
shot really,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just to get that angle, and then having the rider leaving the frame. Like most of the time you want the rider to be with most of the frame leading off in front of you, but having the rider kind of almost falling off the edge of the frame can kind of show that super quick moment.
What about style? I think you're really good at like capturing style in photos.
That's Mark.
Well, yeah, but there's a moment or something that you're capturing that really is
Yeah, I guess
amplifying it, right?
maybe just being familiar with the rider and knowing kind of when the style's going to come out. Yeah, which frame to pick, or if you're shooting one frame, just having that timing down.
Yeah,
not be afraid to send you back up.
Are you shooting one frame, or are you shooting like
Most of the time,
burst.
bursts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just to get the right moment?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those little tips, like look ahead more, because you get that kind of really intense stare or style. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I learned over the time of shooting mountain biking, like when I first started to shoot with you, like I didn't know where to position myself
Yeah.
to see your style.
Tricks, that's really important for sure. Yeah. Like if it's a backflip, being from the side is always really cool. Or like a suicide no-hander or something like that, being from the side. But like a tuck no-hander being head-on is really cool because you got that symmetry. So it's just figuring out what trick they're gonna do definitely picks what frame,
Yeah.
or at least where you're gonna stand.
Maybe just one other question off of that, just from a photography point of view, like
Yeah.
on a trail like Blueprint that is less trick focused, like what do you do to make cool photos?
Environment.
Yeah.
Use that
100%.
green. Use that pretty forest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Show it off.
Yeah, that trail was built with photography and filming in mind. I mean,
Totally.
every chance we had, we would make sure it's like, oh my god, that green over there, that moss, that tree, like whatever we could do to bring that in. And I mean, yeah, you guys killed it with that. So
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of like technical shooting, I had kind of a pretty detailed question from Shredding Bliss. They asked aperture and focusing in these shots. They're really wondering about those things. So are you prominently shooting at f2.8 with autofocus, for example, like trying to keep up with the moving subject? Or are you setting manual focus and trying to keep up a fixed distance to the subject?
I mean, I don't use autofocus really at all, mostly because the GH5 has really bad autofocus, and it just can't keep up with, especially you as a rider. You're just like, you're gone before the camera even recognized there was something to focus on. So, but even with a camera with better autofocus, it would be too unreliable. So I'm manual focus all the way, and then what I'll do is just identify like where is the most important moment of that action that the rider is doing, or position myself such that I'll kind of maintain the same distance from you throughout whatever you're doing, and then set my focus point there, and then just wait for you to come through the frame. And generally I'm not changing focus that much during a shot, but I am shooting at f2.8 just because the forests are so dark that we kind of have to.
Yeah, I was at f2.8 where I could for everything basically. But I don't manual focus at all, but what I do is pre-focus a lot of the time, so I'll figure out kind of if it's a fern where the action's going to be, or a tree where the action's going to be. It's like pre-focus there, and I might not even hit the autofocus. I use back button autofocus and might not even hit it if it's working out. But I mean, the Nikon Z6 has pretty good tracking.
Well, now we're into the building related questions.
Oh boy.
Leon PF wants to know what the biggest problem we had to overcome was in order to complete a section of trail, or what the biggest problem in general was with building the entire trail.
Doing a full film with Shimano, we had to actually do it legal and proper.
Yeah, sanction it. We were kind of limited to where we could build.
Yeah.
We were given a location. Like as a trail builder, like I like to go into my own zone. I like to scope out an area, choose it, just roll with it. But when you're doing something sanctioned and you're getting all the proper permissions ahead of time, you really need to they make the shots, right? Like you really don't get
you're
the call.
limited. You're basically, I mean, you did a lot of the footwork initially, but when I came in, you were like, this is what we have to work
that's
with.
what they gave us to work with, that little
we
area.
can be in this area. And then it was a matter of us figuring out what we could do with it. But yeah, that was a huge hurdle.
Yeah.
When it became much more difficult too, because originally we were going to be scraping moss off of rocks in the zone that you had wanted to build in, and then we moved to digging like this much organic material away before we could get to the ground.
Well, again, the natural process of the film, it changed from one scope to a way bigger scope, and again changed from, Mark and myself, we haven't built in Cumberland in years. We kind of had walked away from it, so it was like, oh, this is our return to Cumberland. Like, we got to freaking do something right here.
Yeah, exactly. For me, the biggest challenge was the gap over the old Mossy Road, like under the big bike park berm we built.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was originally going to be a little step down, and then as we re-angled the berm and built the berm up bigger, the thing after the berm had to get bigger to line up, and then kept testing it, didn't ride as smooth as I wanted to, and it was just like more and more and more dirt. There was so much dirt in that.
Oh, yeah, it's an insane amount of dirt.
Crazy. I think there's got to be
this was a
40 to 50 wheelbarrow loads of dirt in just that 20-foot section of trail.
Yeah,
which is
out of the
nuts.
monster bike park berm that kind of set the berm idea for the whole trail.
Yeah, that kind of set the tone. So that was also a challenge. Well, how we we're building in sections, like we said before. We weren't building top to bottom, which was a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And then you set the tone for something, it all has to match then, because you don't really know what the trail's going to be. Yeah. I think that was one of the biggest challenges for me, was being able to visualize the trail. I wasn't really able to visualize it. We were just kind of going one thing at a time.
Yeah. Well, and this is a total step out of your normal zone too. You build jump trails and smaller feature trails.
Yeah.
This is a trail for everybody's level, and that was a challenge in itself. Like,
for sure.
How do we build a trail that everybody can get down and hopefully enjoy?
Yeah. Another big challenge for me was just the mental aspect of realizing how hard your trail gets abused when it's a public trail. So it was my first experience in my life. You've been doing it for years, but it was my first experience building a trail for everyone to ride.
Yeah.
I don't build stuff that no one's allowed to ride. No one wants to ride most of what I build.
Most people aren't at your level.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to ride that stuff. So it can be 5 years old and still pretty mint.
Exactly.
Whereas this was pretty destroyed within the first week. I guess I didn't expect it to happen that fast. I knew it was going to happen. There was no way around it.
There was no way around it. And I mean, we joked about that the whole process through building that trail. We got to build this trail that it's going to stand up to the masses. And I mean, I think the core of the trail that we basically put to bed before the winter when we decided to pull the plug on it, that section's still looks like it's relatively good.
Some of it.
Some of it, but yeah, it's a super challenging, hard whatever to build a trail like that, and watch it get literally annihilated.
Totally.
I mean, there was half an hour plus lineups.
That was
crazy.
That was
I know, it's
something
nuts.
pretty wild to see. You
Yeah.
know? And I mean, that's on both of you guys. Like the hype that was there was incredible. Like, you know, and if a fraction of the people that wrote it and are in town go out and actually do some maintenance, that trail will be right back to the film quality.
Yeah.
So
For sure. If they do a few maintenance days, big groups.
yeah,
be
get
fun.
out there, contact you, Rock. Let's do it.
Yeah.
They're asking if it was more work than we expected. I think we already made it clear that it was.
Yeah,
Definitely.
They're also asking what we would do differently.
I don't know. That's a hard one. The project changed so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should have reassessed budget is probably one of the things that we should have.
Yeah, or just our time. Like
Yeah.
maybe when we were pitching the project or just brainstorming how it was working, really trying to estimate how much time it would take. I think we were like very naive about that.
Yeah.
Like I've only done short jump lines, and a lot of what you build is like natural raw trails.
Yeah.
And we were going to a more natural raw zone that like I think we both had a good understanding of how much work would be. But when we went to a new zone that we had never seen before, we just kind of like blindly and ignorantly thought it would be kind of equal to the other zone we originally had in terms of our time commitment. And then as soon as we got in there, the dirt inspired us, and we did make it more work for ourselves. Like it was,
you nailed it on the head. I mean,
Yeah.
the dirt inspired us. I mean, back to the same thing. We hadn't built in Cumberland so long. It's like we want to do something amazing. But I mean, yeah, the terrain, the dirt, what we were doing, it's like we're just gonna go crazy.
I mean, moving forward, if I was to do another similar project, I think what I would do differently is, especially if it had to be sanctioned this way, I would like coordinate the location before I even pitched the idea to a sponsor or anyone. I would like scout the location. I would walk the entire line, maybe flag everything. I would put like a couple weeks into work, volunteer time up front to really have a good understanding of what I was getting into.
Yeah.
And then I would be able to estimate better
Yeah.
what it's going to take to make happen.
Yeah.
We didn't really have we didn't have a base to work off of. We just kind of guessed and
Yeah. Oh, I didn't think I was gonna be building, and like it turned out that like I was building. Yeah, and Jared
I
was
was
building
stoked,
like
but-
as much as you guys were building to a degree at a certain point in time.
And became amazing trail builders.
Oh yeah, I mean it was worth it at the end.
I don't know what
guess,
amazing, but
we learned
some
we learned
dirt.
some things.
Yeah.
But I think that's like we just didn't factor a lot of that stuff in, and we kind of like put a lot of upfront energy into like the idea for the film in terms of the concept for the visual effect and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't do as much of that on the building side and the like location side as we could have.
Toby Tobias was asking, did you know what features you wanted to build before you started building it?
No.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of I can't remember where I heard this, but I remember being like a kid and being really inspired by seeing like a feature in a bike film or something and wanting to go out and copy it, and then exploring the forest for days and getting frustrated I couldn't find something like that. And I think I learned my lesson quickly that you can't like come into trails with like a pre-built in mind. And especially if it's handwork, right? Like if you have big excavators and whatever, sure. But if you want to like build something, if you want to build a trail, you basically just have to pick a piece of land and work with the land. And it kind of dictates what you're going to build. You can't really pre-plan too much. I mean, you can have ideas of what you want to build, but you can't like exactly pinpoint what you're building until you're in it. And it kind of happens one thing at a time.
Yeah,
At
it
least for
happens
me.
organically. And then with this project, we were basically told like, here's your section you can work on. So it took us flagging it and figuring it out. And then trying to really figure out what would work there. We knew what the community and what U-Rock wanted, which was a blue flow trail. So then it just kind of grew from there.
They got a machine-built blue flow trail built by hand.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you talked to this a little bit in your interview content for Blueprint as well, but I think some of it kind of made it into the film. But finding these cool natural features in the forest, whether it's a tree or a gnarly stump or a interesting rock or whatever it is, and like trying to use those as like landmarks to connect the pieces of the trail. And like when we first walked the trail, when the three of us went out there and you were just starting to flag that line, like having you see the grade and, you know, we could like put a berm here and we could do some rollers here and all that sort of stuff.
But yeah, never force a trail with the land you have. You know, if you
Totally. Yeah.
if you
can.
have something in mind, like you want to do a rock drop, well, you're not going to do it in a forest like we did.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
go find that terrain to work with,
totally.
right? But I mean, if you got a section that you can work with, well, build to it.
Yeah. And that worked out so good on this trail. Like, you don't really have to pedal anywhere. You can go to the top, you kind of pedal at the beginning, hit those few gaps, and once you're after the zigzags, it's like, it's just go time.
But that was hours and hours of planning between you and I. I mean, we would build a section and like think about the speeds coming down into that section and be like, oh, that berm needs to be opened up, or that needs to be way bigger of a catcher. Like, there was so much planning back and forth.
sure.
Like, yeah, it's cool though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So we lightly touched on this already, but there's a few questions here all related to like how our trails submitted for approval where we're building, how do we get permission to build what we're building. And I'm just wondering about like the permission and like what the process is of building sanctioned trails around here. I guess like we're in a really unique place where we live. A lot of countries
Don't have
don't have that privilege, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, we're in a really unique situation, which is awesome.
I know in the States they gotta go through fancy approvals.
Yeah.
I mean, you can probably talk to that more with you, Rob,
Yeah.
because I've never actually submitted a trail to you.
Yeah, well, I know
and
like how United
gone
Riders
through
of
the
Cumberland
process.
is structured. Like they have a land use agreement with Mosaic, who are the landowners. Mosaic's the forestry company that owns that land. And essentially Mosaic calls the shots. They own the land. They decide what's getting logged and when, but they allow people to recreate in the forest.
Yeah.
And then if a new trail needs to go into place, then you can't just go out there and like make it a ninja operation. You actually have to coordinate with the local association.
Yeah.
It was the United Riders of Cumberland in this case. And then they kind of are the middleman between the builder and the forestry.
Yeah.
And then they help make that happen. So they had a plot of land that we were allowed to stick within. And then once we started roughing it in, Dougal from EROC came in, walked with us, and made sure we were on track.
There's also like there's the Whistler's building standards, and there's IMBA has a building standards, and that gets back to like your green, blue, black, double black diamond trails. So when you initially talked with Dougal, he wanted a blue flow trail. So we had to keep that in mind the whole way through the process.
Obviously, a blue flow trail is much more appealing to the masses.
Yeah,
A lot
for
more
sure.
relatable for mountain bikers. And if we're going to build a story along with the trail,
Yeah.
it's nice to have a trail that's at the level a lot of people can relate to. So I think that got EROC really excited though, and that really helps. Like you're saying.
Huge.
One question though I think might be helpful for some people is like you guys have a reputation, right? Like basically when we reached out to UROC, there was no need to verify your skills, right? It was basically like, here's a piece of land, make sure the trail's in this area, let's check it before you do it, but then just go for it. Whereas like somebody that's maybe never built a trail, there's gonna be a very different process for them. They're probably gonna need to volunteer a lot more with their local trail group to get that credibility, essentially.
That's a good point. Volunteer.
Or team up with someone experienced, and if you really are excited to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Myself in town, I mean, a couple of my best friends at Trailbuilding now, they started literally asking at bike shops, like, who do I talk to? Where do I go? Brought them out when they were groms, and like, they're awesome trail builders now. Some of them have built their own stuff, and it's like, that's literally where you start.
Yeah.
Few people want to know if we're going to do similar projects in the future, similar trails. What are the future plans?
Whatever comes our way. I mean, I don't know about doing another giant build project like this. I mean, it's not a matter of it wasn't fun. It's a matter of, do we need to retell that story? I mean, we definitely had a story we wanted to tell.
Yeah.
I think we can put our focus towards telling other stories. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always be building trails. Maybe not a blue trail, but I would like to do maybe, if I was to do another like trail in Cumberland Sanction Network again, it would probably be a black.
Yeah.
And I'd probably like spend a lot of time, like I said, scouting before, trying to get some sponsorship support behind it to really make it worthwhile spending months of work on.
Yeah, myself, I got a trail network I'm building that I'm hopefully going to push some people on, but yeah.
How about the media guys? Any inspiration to build trails now?
I mean, it was a good thing to do. I don't think trail building is like my calling, but I think what it showed to me is like what a longer term project from a filming point of view can take and what that can look like. And that you really have to be passionate about the idea and like the people that you're completing that idea with, or you're gonna burn out, because filming the same thing for a year and then also then having to sit and edit it for another month after that and listen to all those conversations again and everything, you have to love the thing and the people that were involved with it. So I think that's like the lesson that I take from it. Is that the end of our questions?
That's the end of all the questions.
Yeah. Well,
it's a fun project.
It was a fun project.
Ridiculously fun project.
I'm glad to officially call it a wrap with this. This is the last video related to Blueprint.
Nice.
Well, thanks you guys.
Yeah.
Boom. 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 Yeah, thanks for being an awesome team.
Good.
Hopefully this was an interesting video for you all. It probably is pretty long. I'm not sure how long we've been yakking on here. But until the next video, get out there, make something beautiful, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.
Cheers.